I'm back, people of Earth. We got cut off mid-sentence reading about life after death from the Man, Myth and Magic book, Volume 1. The time is currently 8:31 p.m. on the 27th of May 2025. So let us continue reading. We were reading from the section titled Heaven and Hell, and we were reading about Greece. So I'll just start from the top of that paragraph where we got chopped off by I don't know what, the genie in my laptop, and it's very frustrating because I didn't touch anything and it just went blippity blippity blip, flippity jippity jip, wheel, on we go and on we go. By contrast, in Greece, having just described the Egyptian ascension into heaven, by contrast in Greece, the Homeric heroes who loved life on earth and revelled in physical action saw the underworld where the soul had lost its physical body as a wretched place of insubstantial shadows. The powerless dead, squeaking like bats, lived without everything that makes existence worthwhile. When they were offered blood, the carrier of life, they rushed to lap it greedily. The Homeric underworld was not a hell, a place of punishment for the wicked, but the home of all the dead, good and bad alike. Only a few great heroes escaped death altogether and lived immortal and happy Elysium. But by the 6th century BC, the Eleusinian mysteries had begun to promise a happy life after death to those who were initiated, while those who were not would go down into darkness and gloom. In the Frogs of Aristophanes, a chorus of initiates sing of the afterworld that awaits them, where the lovely meadows lie, where the living waters flow, where the roses bloom and blow. Jesus promised his followers eternal life. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. He was also quoted as promising a final judgment and the eternal punishment of the wicked in the fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Much earlier, the Egyptians had believed that each soul is judged after death and rewarded or punished. The papyrus of Ani, circa 1320 BC, has a famous illustration of the dead man's heart being weighed against a feather, the symbol of truth. In the 4th century BC, the judgment of the dead and the punishment of the unjust appears in Plato, and after 200 BC, the Jews developed a belief in the fiery torment of the worthless dead in Gehenna, named from a valley outside Jerusalem, where the city's rubbish was burned. Christians built up a terrifying picture of the Day of Judgment, when Christ would return to judge the living and the dead, who would rise from their graves at the sound of the last trump. The righteous would be taken up into heaven, and the wicked hurled down to the fiery tortures of hell. The human mind often finds it easier to imagine hell than picture heaven. So much so that in the 12th century, Hugh of St. Victor said that one of the reasons why the wicked burn is to allow the saved to watch their anguish and so realize more fully the joy of being in heaven. Sounds a bit sadomasochistic to my mind, but sign of the thought philosophy of the times. Earlier, a Jewish commentary on Leviticus had described the saved gloating over the damned, which is in German called Schadenfreude, which is also not particularly nice, although we've all been guilty of that at some time now, lives people of earth. But most modern Christians and Jews either reject hell altogether or think of its agony as the pain of separation from God rather than as physical torture. The joy of the Christian heaven consists of being eternally close to God, and the Christian emphasis is not on mere survival but on resurrection, the lifting up of man to God's level, symbolised by the soaring arches and spires of Gothic churches. Others have believed in more sensuous paradises, like the Valhalla of the Norsemen, where the great god Odin lives on wine and warrior heroes fight each other enjoyably by day and feast together on pork and mead in the evening. I'd have a bit of a problem being a Jewish Viking because I don't eat pork, but I'm up for the mead, people of earth. I'd enjoy some nice mead, I think. Maybe they'll make some lamb for me when I get there, or beef, or preferably chicken. No, we should give the chicken some respite. I've eaten a lot of chicken in this incarnation. I sometimes feel dreadfully guilty about it, especially since how much I love birds, and when I kept pet chickens I adored them too and would never have eaten them, bizarrely. I had no qualms eating birds that I brought home from the supermarket. There's no logic to that, is there really? There's no logic to that. But anyway, I don't believe in eating my own pets or my own beloved ones is what I'm saying. The Mohammedan paradise contained the beautiful black-eyed houris, whose embraces delighted the faithful. The Eskimo saw the dead in the splendour of the aurora borealis, cheerfully playing football with the head of a walrus. I think their heaven sounds like the most fun, actually. Not that I'm fond of sport, but if you're going to play football, you might as well do it in the psychedelic aurora borealis. Reincarnation and release. Ideas of heaven and hell generally imply the survival of each human soul as a separate individual. The great Indian contribution to beliefs about life after death is that the soul loses its individual personality and becomes part of a larger whole. Most people are reborn to live fresh lives over and over again, not always as human beings, but sometimes as animals, each person falling to a lower form of life or rising to a higher as a result of his actions. It's something to think about, isn't it, people? Release from the prison of this succession of existences comes through self-denial and austerity, through the techniques of yoga, or by following the eightfold path of Buddhism. When you gain release, you are merged into a greater and non-personal reality. In Hinduism, Brahman, the unchanging, the One, which is the basis of all things, and which is also the innermost being of each one of us, the Self within the heart. Or, in Buddhism, Nirvana, the snuffing out of the flickering flame of life and the attainment of eternal changelessness. Something to look forward to, is it not? I'll be drinking mead with the Vikings in the back corner over in heaven over there, and knock 3 times on the ceiling if you need me. I shouldn't joke about that, that could happen. Shh. Talking about Brahman brings out David Davidson usually. So, I'll be very, very quiet. Shh. 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 The theory of reincarnation has been adopted by many in the West, including Pythagoras, Plato, and the Druids. The myth of with which Plato's Republic ends, is a story about a man who returned from the dead and described his experiences. He and other departed spirits had been told that they were now to choose new lives. Samples of lives were placed before them, lives of every animal and of man in every condition, lives mingling fame and infamy, wealth and poverty, health and disease, and every other quality in different proportions. By the gods, I've lived all of those in this incarnation, 16 near deaths. It's getting absurdist, people of the earth. It was absurdist about 6 near deaths ago, but it's got even more bizarre as I've gotten older. I guess eventually Santa Muerte will take me by my hand and lead me in the last tango. Will she take me to Valhalla though, since she's the Latin American goddess of death? I don't know. I guess it all merges into oneness if you reach nirvana. Come as you are, as a friend, as I hoped you would be. Hurry up, take your time, the choice is yours, etc., etc., etc. The souls chose, some wisely and others not. Plato told the story to drive home the moral that a man must take with him into the world below an adamantine faith in truth and right, that there too he may be undazzled by the desire of wealth or the other allurements of evil, but let him know how to choose the mean and avoid the extremes on either side as far as possible, not only in this life, but in all that which is to come. For this is the way of happiness. Belief in reincarnation is widespread among primitive peoples. who take it as the obvious answer to the question, where do human souls come from? Australian Aborigines say that the soul waits at a certain place, perhaps a waterhole or a rock, for a woman to come by when it enters her body to be reborn. Some Pacific Islanders expected to live a second life as white men, and their word for ghost and white man was the same. The general belief in Africa is that many of the dead are eventually reborn again, and, far from wanting an Indian release from the burden of earthly existence, the dead are delighted to return to this warm and lively world of human sensation. Before I continue reading, I'll just show you the pictures. Left, spiritualists. I was raised as a spiritualist by my father and my mother to a certain degree, but mainly my father dragged me to every spiritualist church in Melbourne when I had access visits with him on a Sunday to fill in time and do something that was meaningful, I suppose, more for his benefit than for mine, the child. He would take me to various spiritualist churches. Spiritualists believe that they can make contact with their dead relatives and friends. These spiritualists, typical of hundreds all over the country, meet weekly at a flat in North London. It's very windy, so I won't freak out about the door banging, but I did close that door properly. Just shut that. Just shut. Not all my doors in this house close properly, so they easily come open again. It's not necessarily anything spooky, people with it. And my kitchen windows, some of them are open, so it's a fair bit of air blowing through the house, so we won't freak out. Although we did name the Brahmin, did we not? So anyway, he's been quiet in recent weeks, which I find kind of fascinating actually, given recent events. It's almost like he's achieved his aim, which was to destroy any hope of love for man. Vicious it was, but what seems vicious now might actually turn out to be for my highest good, so I'll have to trust in even that one who I have very little faith and trust in, given his track record when he was alive with me. But anyway, trust in the ancestors that love me, if no one else, people of earth. Right. The flowers are important as the departed spirits are said to like them. And in fact, if you know anything about spiritualism, there is such a thing as physical mediumship and a thing called apports, where a medium can actually make flowers appear out of thin air, sometimes items of jewellery, sometimes old Roman coins or gold coins can appear. I can't remember the name, but there's one physical medium in contemporary times actually vomits up coins, like from inside, spits them out, almost choking, vomiting them up, which would be, to my mind, very disconcerting and not pleasant to watch, but that's how he manifests his apports, whereas others just, they appear in their hand as if by magic, and they're not actual tricks. They some of them have been documented to be quite genuine. Still, it would be astonishing to see see it manifest. Right. Seeing that in this world the good often suffer while the wicked flourish, people have concluded that there must be rewards and punishments after death. In this medieval Christian picture, the damned are being literally carted off to hell, where they are punished with hideous torments. Some of them look quite nasty. I'll show it to you, but I don't necessarily believe that that's the case. I'm just showing you what's presented here. The Christians believe in. And I feel dizzy looking at that picture of the mediums. They've taken it from high up in the ceiling. So I'll show it to you again. It does make you feel like you're watching some kind of spiral whirlpool. It really makes me feel dizzy. The medium and the message. You've seen me spontaneously do mediumship, quite spontaneously and quite embarrassingly at times. When that one, we shall not mention his name, has jumped in on occasion. Sometimes there have been other spirits that have jumped in, usually after I've been reading for about 1.5 to 2 hours. Obviously I'm getting tired or somehow entering a kind of a delta state, and then I've had spirits jumping in. You've heard me in numerous videos go, who are you? Give me your name. Or if you don't give me your name, you cannot interrupt this programming, this delivery, this reading. And it's been a bit intense at times, to be honest. Been a bit intense, even by my standards, because it's a new thing that I didn't really have a problem with in previous decades. It's a new manifestation, which has been a bit confronting for me to get used to myself. Anyway, let me just begin reading again. Modern spiritualism is usually dated from investigations of mysterious rappings supposedly made by the spirit of a murdered man in the house of the Fox family at Hydeville, New York, in the late 1840s. Spiritualists believe that the dead can pass messages to a medium, who is usually in a state of trance or semi-trance, which sets her apart from the normal world. The messages often come to her through a control, who is also thought to be a departed spirit, but who may in fact be a secondary personality of the medium, acting almost independently of her. Mediums have produced many other unusual phenomena besides verbal messages, including knocks and rappings, moving lights and moving furniture, bodily appearances of spirits and photographs of them. Remember some weeks ago Davidson threatened to be a full manifestation. I kind of freaked out because I would not welcome that. Number one, in my home. Number two, while I'm reading to my YouTube audience. That would be very, very frightening for even by my standards. So I told him, don't you dare do such a thing. But he knows how to push my buttons. He knows what my concerns and fears are. And like any discarnate spirit, sometimes as a bit of a joke at my expense, am I right? What else are you going to do when you don't have a body and you've got nothing better to do but annoy your ex-girlfriend from the year 2000? It's odd, people of Earth. It's very odd indeed. And I could have exorcised him well and truly from ever having access to me again, but I found it kind of academically interesting that, he spent the last, when did he die? 2022? No, that's not correct. Think about it for a moment. When did I went off all my psych meds? 2016, yes. So he spent the last 9 years, but really only in the last 2-3 years, intensely communicating with me. It's been odd, since he didn't have that level of intense communication when he was alive with me. In fact, he used to either slam the phone down or be really sadistic and vicious and awful, would demand that I'd visit him, and I'd drive over there because I was in love with him at that time. People were young and stupid and naive. And then he'd set me up with his now wife and accused me of stalking and all this evil bullshit when he'd actually insisted I come and see him. And she'd be sitting there. Oh, it was sick and evil and depraved games they used to play, him and her. She's still alive, but fuck her, the evil bitch. What they used to put me through, real kind of sadistic, vicious kind of form of torture in a way. So as a consequence, I had no contact with that entity for 16 years, and then when concurrently at the time that I was weaning off my psych meds, he appeared at my door as a ghost, which turned out to be only 3 weeks after his passing. So thus began a gradual deepening of our connection. Him as a ghost, me as the Mama T, still trying to live my best life and recover from that arsehole, by the way. Here we are now, 25 years later, and I'm still recovering and reclaiming and gaining my power. Maybe that's why he's finally buggered off. Someone's running around with a torch, must have lost power. Anyway, it's Mama 2 going to power. She doesn't need him to annoy me anymore with this nonsense. But anyway, not that it was all nonsense. Some of it was quite profound and very sage and wise advice at times, and well, it all makes sense one day when I cross over, I guess. In the meantime, we were reading Bodily Appearances of Spirits, Don't You Dare, David, and photographs of them. I don't have any photographs of him, so hopefully he won't be reporting any of those either. Ectoplasm, a whitish substance exuding from the medium's body and usually turning out to be cheesecloth. And that's not necessarily true. That's only true if it was someone faking being a medium. There were a lot of charlatans back in the day. In fact, there still are. And objects which appear to have entered the room supernaturally through the walls or the ceiling. Here they're mentioning vaguely about apports. The history of spiritualism is riddled with trickery, fraud and folly. The sadly depressing triviality of what so many of the dead have to say, which can be true indeed, their saccharine piety and the inanities of controls masquerading as Red Indians or children have long been matters of cynical comment. But there have also been some serious mediums whose good faith has never been successfully challenged in spite of rigorous investigation, and some striking cases of automatic painting and writing, which my father used to get me to do automatic writing when I was about 12, 13, 14, 15. Not sure when I stopped doing automatic writing. Got bored of it eventually. I think I was about 16 when I stopped it. But anyway, the automatic paintings that you can see if you visit a spiritualist church, though, are indeed sometimes quite fascinating. Supposedly inspired by the dead and hard to explain away entirely. The human tendency to want to believe in life after death makes objective appraisal of the evidence peculiarly difficult, but some psychical researchers maintain that communications coming through genuine mediums point clearly to human survival. Others believe that the information contained in these communications probably does not come from the dead but is picked up by the medium unconsciously from the minds of living people through extrasensory perception. Yes, I do believe that is a phenomenon too. It's a form of telepathy. This explanation becomes harder to accept when the living people are miles away from the medium at the time, and runs into serious difficulties with some very complicated cases in which a communication has been received not by one medium, but in fragments by several different mediums, making sense only when the fragments are pieced together, especially when the communication contains obscure scholarly allusions, as in the case of the cross correspondences. These were communications received by a number of mediums early in the century from what appeared to be a group of friends, including F.W.H. Myers and Edmund Gurney, who in life had been prominent members of the Society for Psychical Research. Myers is a good Jewish name. I wonder if they were Jewish. The uncertainty of the evidence and the difficulty of evaluating it have caused the trend in psychical research towards investigation of ESP and away from the question of survival. Despite all the centuries of inquiry, the verdict on life after death has still to be not proven. Well, I beg to differ, but it's only my opinion, since I'm still very much here in this physical body, cleaving to planet Earth, with my big hobbit feet, holding my line, people of Earth. Alright, I will read the next chapter, even though I'm actually quite exhausted. Should I or should I not? Should I save it for tomorrow? Because we got broken up by some weird computer malfeasance. No, I will read. I will read on. Also, it's only a few pages and it's my favourite, one of my favourite subjects in the paranormal or the metaphysical. Alchemy, a secret language of the mind. Far left, a montage of 16th and 17th century alchemical illustrations showing the types of equipment used. left. The base metal, the globe of the earth, transformed into silver, the moon, and gold, the sun, through the use of Mercury, the dragon. It has two heads because of the double nature of Mercury as both a metal and a liquid. The mysterious stone. Comments by alchemists on the stone, by that they're referring to the philosopher's stone, which turns all things to gold. From a man and a woman make a circle, then a square, then a triangle, finally a circle, and you will obtain the philosopher's stone. It's interesting, I was just putting my notes into my grimoire, and I was shown an isosceles triangle with a triskel inside it in one of my meditations, and I didn't know what it meant at the time, but it was kind of the beginning of me opening up, becoming more clairvoyant at times, or more psychic. And here they have in the drawing on a brick wall a picture of the alchemist with man and woman in a circle, inside a square, inside an isosceles triangle, inside a larger circle. So you see, I get these little alchemical type flashes in my mind's eye, which I don't always understand because I haven't made a great study of alchemy. When they were first shown to me was in late 2019, actually while I was dancing wildly an ecstatic dance with a light being, and I asked her who she was because it's cosmic law that you should ask a spirit for their name before you interact with them. And to my astonishment, although we were on hallowed ground since it was a church ball, which church was it if I can remember correctly? The United Church over at West End. And the spirit announced herself to me as the goddess, or in Christian, Judeo-Christian mythology, the demoness, Lilith. I don't see her as a demon per se, but she is a protector of abused women and children, and I have a history of child sexual abuse, so in my childhood, so I was a bit taken aback when I realised I was dancing with Lilith. And so I asked her courteously in my mind's eye, "What is your message, Lilith?" As courteously as I could, because I don't want to upset such an ancient being recorded in our religious texts, even as the first wife of Adam Kadmon, am I right? Don't want to get on her wrong side, just saying. Anyway, she just showed me two symbols that I recognised sort of vaguely. I knew they were alchemical, but I didn't know what they were, but I knew they were alchemy. So I had to kind of quickly draw a little, in my notes on my phone, I drew a little scribble of them. Didn't have time because I was participating in ecstatic dance. It was a very spiritual night that night. It was intense. Anyway, and it was the beginning of my opening up, actually. It was after I'd had the near death too, on the 25th of June 2019, and it was a dance I was at in November. I think it was, I can't remember the exact date, but it was definitely November when she appeared to me and gave me those two symbols. I had no idea what they meant, but anyway, finished off the dance, said goodbye to everybody, went home and Googled like a maniac to find out what those symbols meant. And one meant Jupiter and one meant Saturn. Lead and tin. Still don't know exactly what she was trying to inform me of, but in early January 2020 began the silversmithing. Was it 2020 or 2021? No, I think it was 2020. So she'd set me on my chosen path, my next study, which was self-teaching myself silversmithing to varying degrees of success. But it's been a 5-year journey, and it was precipitated by Lilith coming to me and showing me alchemical symbols. And pursuant to that, there was some article came up on Facebook at the time. Now bear in mind, March 2020 was the unleashing of a certain poisoning upon our population. Just talking obliquely here, but you will know what I'm talking about, people of Earth. And so I came upon this article that explained more in detail something about the merging of Jupiter and Saturn, which is exactly what those two symbols Lilith had shown me. Sorry, I just saw my mouse move involuntarily, so my computer does this from time to time. So anyway, it certainly made sense then what was going on, but at the time when I was shown those symbols, I had no idea at all what was about to take place, or what was going on, or what changes I myself was going to experience in the ensuing 5 years, almost 6 years, people of Earth. It's been, to put it colloquially, full on. Right, let me continue reading. That was a quote by Michael Meyer. But when we marry the crowned king with the red daughter, she will conceive a son in the gentle fire, and shall nourish him through our fire. Then is he transformed, and his tincture, tinge of colour, remains red as flesh. Our son of royal birth takes his tincture from the fire, and death, darkness, and the waters flee away. Probably possum hitting the roof. The dragons shun the light of the sun. Sorry, it's possums. The dragons shun the light of the sun, and our dead son shall live. The king comes forth from the fire, and rejoices in the marriage. Tractatus Aureus. And the next quote is, take the serpent and place it in the chariot with 4 wheels, and let it be turned about on the earth until it is immersed in the depths of the sea, and nothing more is visible but the blackest Dead Sea. And when the vapour is precipitated like rain, you shall bring the chariot from water to dry land, and then you have placed the 4 wheels on the chariot, and will obtain the result, if you will advance further to the Red Sea, running without running, moving without motion. Tractatus Aristotelis ad Alexandrum Magnum. Out of other things thou wilt never make the one, until thou hast first become one. thyself. Gerhard Dorn. The alchemists moved along two tracks, which to most of us will never meet, one mystical and the other chemical. But to the adepts, these were one track, for they believed that through the processes of the art, they could both perfect themselves as human beings and perfect metals by turning them into gold. In most books of reference, even today, alchemy is described as a false science based on the pretense that gold could be made from other metals, and it is still often referred to as nothing more than a fraudulent or inefficient forerunner of modern chemistry. I wouldn't say fraudulent, nor was it inefficient either. Just saying. Can't stand these myopic bloody authors. Dear goddess. Oh, I'm getting riled up. My inner fire is firing up, people of Earth. Right. These are misguided descriptions which fail to take account of modern advances in the study of the philosophical and psychological side of the subject. Alchemy was more an art than a science, and its most important and most interesting aim was the spiritual transformation of the alchemist himself. For the mystical alchemists, the art involved both a chemical process and a spiritual process, both the turning of lead into gold and the transmutation of the alchemist from a state of leaden earthly impurity to one of golden spiritual perfection. The alchemical labyrinth. Whether we are ever likely to gain a full understanding of the details of alchemical operations is doubtful, because of the obscure language of so many of the old texts. This obscurity of language and symbolism was deliberate. The medieval alchemist was uncomfortably close to heresy because, for the redemption of his soul from earthly bondage, he relied on his own efforts combined with devout and direct appeals to God, rather than on an approach to the divine through the conventional medium of the Church. This spiritual position near the brink of heresy was one reason for the cryptic mystery mongering of alchemical writers. They also recognized that the forces of nature involved in the great work could be dangerous. Violent explosions were a frequent accompaniment of alchemical operations. But, above all, they were determined to keep powerful mysteries of material and spiritual progress out of the hands of the greedy and the unworthy, a noble pursuit in that alone. Don't you agree? Mama T agrees. Indeed, absolutely. Greedy and unworthy people should never be gifted the secrets of the universe, because they will misappropriate it and use it for evil. The house is creaking in agreement with me. As Thomas Norton of Bristol puts it in the 15th century, in his poem called Ordinal of Alchemy, this art must ever secret be, the cause whereof is this, as ye may see. If one evil man had thereof all his will, all Christian peace he might easily spill, and with his pride he might pull down rightful kings and princes of renown. This tall poppy syndrome's a thing, and evil and envy and jealousy and aspiring to tear down others so you can build oneself up is one of the most unworthy of human feckless foibles. To put off the incompetent and unworthy, alchemical writers veiled their directions behind a tangled code of symbols. The dragon, the king's son, the grey wolf, the black crow, the lepers, the lion and the unicorn, the slaughter of the innocents, the royal marriage, the Ethiopian, the tree, the peacock, the bath, and many more. Dear Goddess. An unusually simple example is that the spherical glass vessel used in many alchemical processes was called the philosopher's egg, not only because of its shape, but because the philosopher's stone which turns all things to gold, the Midas touch in the Bible, am I right? Would emerge from the vessel just as, in an old legend, the universe was hatched from an egg. The great work laid a heavy burden on those who attempted it. It involved hours of prayer for God's grace and help, and the reading of almost impossibly difficult books, a task which had to be repeated many times until, slowly and painfully, their hidden meaning loomed up through the mists of symbolism. It meant months and years of toil over stills and furnaces, difficult processes being repeated over and over again with inadequate equipment. Reminds me a bit of bloody silversmithing at times. Mama T failing to solder the gold embellishment down, so now I've had to make new ones, and it's not the equipment that's inadequate though, it's Mama T's skill base. Still make her silly mistakes and I don't know why. It's almost like an unconscious form of sabotage. Fear of failure, fear of success. But when I finish that cup, it's going to be lovely. I was going to say magnificent, but there's too many flaws in it that I know that are there. So we'll just go with lovely, shall we? Let's not get too grandiose and know our place in the known universe. But I'm going to wear it with joie de vivre and pride because I've worked hard at it and I've persevered all the way through every step, and even though there's mistakes that I know are there, and I'll still be happy with it because I made it and I fought through with it, and it's almost like it's almost symbolic now. Right, now where were we? Inadequate equipment. The experimenter wound his way through a labyrinth of false starts, misleading side tracks, dead ends, false hopes, disappointments, disasters and delays. I hear you, brother. I hear you. So you see, when Lilith came and appeared to me in the dance, she was setting me on this path, and knowing that 5 years later I'd be laughing about it, she's probably sitting back going, well, psychedelic dreamer, all in all, I'm proud of you for not just trying, but persevering and sticking with it, kid. Whether we believe that any of the alchemists ever reached the heart of the maze or not, those who devoted themselves, body and soul, to the art cannot all be dismissed as fools or swindlers indeed. Gold and the stone. The aim of alchemy, on the physical plane at least, was to take a raw material, usually but not always a metal, and through long and complicated chemical processes to manufacture the philosopher's stone. The stone had in itself the power of perfecting matter, and when a small quantity of it was mixed with other materials, it would turn them into gold. Many of the descriptions of the stone do not suggest a real object at all. It is made of fire and water. It is a stone, but not a stone. It comes from God, but does not come from God. It grows from flesh and blood, and yet is made of animal, vegetable, and mineral. Unknown and yet known to everyone, it is generally considered worthless, and yet supremely valuable. A lot of dichotomies there. These descriptions sometimes refer to the stone, the final step in the great work, and sometimes to the raw material with which the alchemist was supposed to begin the first step in his operations. This curious meeting of the opposite ends of the work was symbolized by a snake swallowing its own tail, called the Ouroboros. From the spiritual point of view, the snake probably meant that alchemy begins and ends with man. The alchemist himself is the raw material of the work, and he is also its final product, himself perfected. I know, as a quick segue, I know I'm annoying like that. But I know when I finish each jewellery project, some have been quite difficult for me. I've put in a lot of psychic effort as well as mental, physical effort. Like today, my hands are still very sore from yesterday's workings. And I know when I complete a project that it is kind of a spiritual elevation. Like I feel literally high as in when you ingest certain substances, like for example cannabis, which I have dabbled in on rare occasions, or when you smoke a cigar and or smoke a cigarette, you get this very brief, momentary high, not the same kind of high as you get with cannabis, of course, with cigars or cigarettes, but there's this moment of where you feel your brain just switch on kind of thing. That kind of high. So I get this kind of a high when I complete a project that I'm proud of and that I think has turned out lovely and that I can take delight in. And yes, it's there is a change in my brain. It's building of self-esteem, and it's a feeling of accomplishment and a measure of success and joy and delight, especially if I end up gifting it to someone, seeing that they're appreciative of the beauty of the object I've made or of the intention that I've poured into it, or the magic I've poured into it. When they receive it with joy and delight and grace and happiness and excitement, it gives me a boost too. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It is a form of perfecting oneself. Ars totum requirit hominum, the alchemist said. The art requires the whole man, or in my case, woman. Despite the rhapsodical and paradoxical descriptions of the stone which relate to the alchemist himself, the true egg in which the spiritual stone was hatched, many alchemists evidently believed that the philosopher's stone did exist as a real physical object, that it did in reality turn things to gold, and that some great masters of the art had succeeded in manufacturing it. Imagine being able to turn things into gold, people of earth. Lead into gold. One adept who was believed to possess the stone was Paracelsus, the famous 16th century doctor and theorist. Ouch. An account in a book by Michael Neander, published at Leipzig in 1586, Orbis terrae partium succincta explicatio, describes how Paracelsus heated a pound of mercury in a crucible. Very dangerous thing to do, by the way. When it began to smoke, a piece of wax containing grains of the red lion, the stone in the form of red powder, was dropped into the crucible. The crucible was covered. Half an hour later, Paracelsus asked what the mixture in the crucible looked like. I answered that it looked yellow, like gold. Yes, he said, it is supposed to be gold. I took it out, and gold it was. He said, take it to the goldsmith who lives above the pharmacy and tell him to pay me for it. I did as he told, and the goldsmith weighed it. Its weight was a pound minus half an ounce, and he went for money. As late as 1782, there was a tremendous sensation in England when James Price, chemist and Fellow of the Royal Society, mixed a white powder with 50 times its own weight of mercury, added borax and niter, and heated the mixture in a crucible, stirring it with an iron rod. The result was an ingot of genuine silver. But that's because mercury is also called quicksilver. but I'm not sure. I would not try that at home, people of Earth, because, explosions can happen. You've got to have the measurements right. You've got to know what you're doing. Just saying. I've got all the equipment in my studio where I could dabble in alchemy if I wanted to, but I'm still overcoming my fear of this little torch and my failings of soldering. So I'm a long, long way before I could even dream of becoming a true alchemist. Except with the mama tea, turning shit to spiritual gold kind, but it's not real gold, you understand. And let me think of that again. I'm reviewing the situation. Let me think it out again. No, I'll be good, I promise. When the same operation was repeated with a red powder, the result was genuine gold. However, when the Royal Society insisted that the experiments be repeated before observers chosen by the Society, Price reluctantly agreed, and then committed suicide by drinking prussic acid, collapsing and dying before the observers' eyes. It was assumed that he had introduced silver or gold into the crucible through a hollow stirring rod. You see what I mean about not trying this at home, because if you can't produce the results, and it's an awful lot of pressure on a person to choose to suicide rather than be proven to be a charlatan and a trickster and a con man and an asshole. Just saying. Well, these things happen, people do. Various medals and coins were struck to commemorate supposedly successful transmutations. There is a great medal of alchemical gold dated 1677, for instance, struck for the Emperor Leopold I by the alchemist Wenceslaus von Reinberg, a medal of 1609 showing alchemical symbols for mercury and gold, another struck by the Baron Fenninger with the inscription Aurea progenies, plumbo prognata parente, golden progeny begotten by lead as the father, which shows Saturn, the symbol for lead, with the head of the rayed sun, gold, and there are many others. Did alchemy work? Few modern scientists would accept the truth of the alchemist's claim that metals could be turned into gold through the use of a secret substance, the philosopher's stone, and with little more equipment than a furnace and a crucible. Most investigators have concluded that the alchemists were either fraudulent or mistaken. That many swindles were perpetrated is beyond any doubt, but no serious historian of alchemy has ever tried to explain away all the evidence as the product of deliberate deception. Mercury was a material used constantly in alchemy, and it has been suggested that vapours from heated mercury may have caused hallucinations. It's very, very, very toxic or poisonous. Alternatively, A. Segal and other historians of chemistry have pointed out that the alchemists lacked the knowledge of the modern chemist, and that for them any yellowish material was virtually the same as gold. But that would not have fooled a jeweller, not even back in those days. Jewellers who know real gold when I've been fooled by just any yellow substance before that. It's their livelihood. You're going to give away money for fake gold, are you? Really? Maybe a few got taken in, but doubtful. In many cases, they may have succeeded in giving some other metal a golden colour, and then concluded that they had made gold. Alchemical manufacture of silver has been explained by reference to arsenic compounds like orpiment and realgar, which together with copper form silvery alloys. Segal has suggested that the yellow brass, which before zinc was known as a metal, was sometimes made in the Middle Ages by treating calamine and copper, could be taken for the alchemists' gold. The main objection to these theories is that alchemical gold was apparently quite frequently tested and accepted by professional goldsmiths. Excuse me. Oh. Brass might perhaps have been mistaken out of the blue for gold in antiquity, but probably not in Europe of the 15th and 16th centuries. I have my debrief tomorrow afternoon. I don't think it's COVID because I've had no exposure to many people this week, but by the gods, I may have to cancel on the basis that I feel a bit wrung out from having a bit of a snuffle. But I don't like to cancel my debriefs. They're once a fortnight and they're valuable to me. Anyway, brass might perhaps have been mistaken for gold in antiquity, but probably not in Europe of the 15th and 16th centuries. One powerful argument against the validity of alchemy is the fact that its supposedly successful practitioners do not seem to have become wealthy men. When Paracelsus made his will, signed on 24th of September 1541, 3 days before his death, he made no mention of gold and silver. All he had to leave was books and ordinary personal property, and his most valuable single possession was a silver chalice decorated with lions' heads and weighing little more than 4 ounces. If Paracelsus could make gold in large quantities, he seems to have been strangely uninterested in doing so. Let me just go back and read the little blurb that's in a little square. In gold from pesos. In 1899, excuse me, getting really snuffly now, an American scientist performed what appeared to be a successful transmutation. According to the New York Herald, Dr. S.H. Emmons not only succeeded in making gold but sold his product regularly to the United States Assay Office. But Dr. Emmons was no alchemist. His process involved the use of Mexican silver pesos, the metal of which already contained some tiny fragment, about 1/10,000th part of gold. Argentorum gold, as Dr. Emmons called it. As soon as there's a change in temperature, the manatee gets sick. It's very, very annoying. Still, the process itself might have pleased some ancient alchemists with its very complexity, though its central feature was a special press which hammered the silver powerfully while blowers kept the metal cooled. Attempts to imitate Emmons's technique failed, usually because pure silver, not Mexican, was used. Apparently Emmons professed some metallurgical theories that might also have interested alchemists, including the idea that gold and silver are chemically alike, so that silver could turn into gold by a form of long-term natural chemical transmutation. Wow. Alchemists made important contributions to the study of chemistry. In this 18th century painting by Joseph Wright of Derby, an alchemist named Heinrich Brandt is shown discovering phosphorus. Phosphorus that was used to bomb Hamburg and turned people's bodies into dolls 2 feet long. A war crime, people of Earth. Sonnenstraße. Never forget World War II and its heinous activities on both sides of the war. Of course, the Nazis were comparatively worse with their gas chambers and their many death camps throughout Germany and Poland and other parts, but let us not forget that was heinous what the Allies did to Hamburg. Hyenas. Phosphor bombs. Not cool. Literally not cool. In the ways of mundanes. A profound evil. Right, I'll show you these pictures here. Top left. The theme of rebirth was important in alchemical theory. The spiritual rebirth of the alchemist after the killing of his old self, and the rebirth of the base metal after the alchemist had killed it by stripping it of its qualities. The bath of rebirth from the 16th century Splendor Solis of Salomon Trismosin. Top right, another illustration from Splendor Solis. The black figure, which has been killed, is rising from the waters of rebirth and beginning to glow with the blood-red hue of new life. I'll just show you those 2 paintings before I can read on with the ones below. So here he is coming out of the bath, reborn, and here he is also transmuted and reborn. Bottom left, symbols of the materials used in the work from Kabbalah Mineralis in the British Museum. Bottom right, more symbols of death and resurrection from an alchemical MS, by that I presume they mean manuscript, in the British Museum. here you see as you're pouring out, it's a woman lifting up her skirt. Is it? Anyway, the aqua vitae, the water of life, I think that's referencing there. Have a proper look at it. Looks like it's a man dressed as a woman in a dress peeing into what looks like some kind of receptacle that is then being poured into some kind of spherical bottle. Anyway, it's all very interesting, people of Earth. All very interesting. Right, we'll continue reading. I'm getting very tired, but it's only 2 more pages to go. 2 and a bit. The parachemical explanation. The following suggestion is put forward tentatively for what it may be worth as a possible interpretation of evidence which is confused and inadequate. Investigators in the field of parapsychology have suggested that there are cases of psychokinesis or telekinesis, in which a person causes changes in his physical surroundings by causing objects to move about, for instance, without physical action on his part, and apparently by means of some psychic force. It is possible, though certainly not proven, that the long and intense concentration of an alchemist on his materials and operations, and the physically exhausting toil of the work, might induce an unusual condition of mind in which the alchemist was able to cause abnormal chemical reactions in his materials. Something to think about. I know when I worked for 15 hours on my kalaka earrings, when I was making the little silver, sacred hearts and setting the little stones, and I was in an intense, altered state. By the end of that, I was quite frankly a bit of a mess, but I got myself through it. But that was a kind of an alchemical transformation. I didn't make gold. I was making silver, but it was a spiritual. It was very spiritual. It was so spiritual that I was swaying backwards and forwards as if drunk, and I actually thought I might faint. There was so much energy pouring through me, and then I put so much effort into it that it became, almost a ecstatic kind of state without the dancing, by the way, just from the sheer force of concentration and application alone. So I can see that if you had certain metals, certain skills, that you might perhaps be able to do that if you were a true alchemist. These might be termed parachemical reactions, possibly accounting for the alchemist's success. If this were so, we would expect it to occur only very rarely and for very short periods of time, which would explain the inability of successful adepts to grow rich by making large quantities of gold. Indeed, because the energy that you would have to manifest in it is potentially life-threatening, people of Earth. It is a transmutation process. I've had glimpses of that myself, even just with my silversmithing journey. guess it's like a flow state, like an athlete, professional athlete gets into, a musician who's playing their instrument for hours and hours. We see it, that flow state, when I dance for my favourite bands. They get into their zone, as I call it. I get into mine for different reasons, because my instrument is not a guitar or drum. It's my body dancing and moshing and channeling energy that way. But they're also experiencing it physically, because they're strumming the guitar or banging the drums, or playing, wind instruments. So anyway, all the musicians that watch my videos will be nodding. They know when I'm speaking of people there. So it's something I've been happy to share and participate in. Those almost magical flow states that are actually caused by altered states of kind of intrepidly producing our creativity and our own unique expressions. Right, where was I? On this hypothesis, the grace of God, for which alchemists devoutly prayed, and without which, they said, the work could not succeed, would be interpreted as the rare and fleeting psychic ability to cause parachemical change in the alchemist's materials, an ability which, in a pious age, seemed to be something coming from outside the alchemist himself as a gift from God. Well, in my case, I had an entity demanding that I go out and make an offering to the Fae on the 27th of April, and I did indeed obey, because it was a bit confronting. It was a very large energy and very dark and almost oppressive, and I wasn't going to argue with that. Don't know who or what that was to this day, actually. I wasn't going to, unless it was asking me to do something malignant, then I would have argued, but it seemed benign enough. Anyway, they asked me to make an offering to the Fae, and I found Charlie's beak had been scratched up by the scrub turkeys from her grave. The body had been taken by some animal or bird 3 days after her death. Just a bit symbolic when you think about it. Freaked me out though, at the time. Anyway, I found her beak, and with great astonishment I picked it up, and that entity, that energy, said to me, take it inside and put it in the delved clay and make a mould of it and make a sterling silver pendant, and then I will instruct you further on what I want you to do with it. And they were with me all day, that energy, guiding me through the process of making Charlie's beak into a sterling silver charm, a mould of it, model of it. And then I was suggested to, not ordered, but suggested that I make a little broken piece of boulder opal that I'd had, hoarded for years, polish it up, turn it into a little heart, and to hang the beak off the heart. And they were at me for 3 days till I completed that project. But it was a very astonishing experience, because it was like someone acting in the way of like a Greek muse or a teacher, guiding me through the process. And at one stage I rebelled. I'm very defiant. I'm very defiant by nature, people of Earth, because of my childhood abuse. So at one point I rebelled against that spirit and they said, now go and cast it and do it with your Smith little torch. And I said, no, I'll do it with the map gas and I'll do it outside in the dark. By this stage it was 8 o'clock in the evening and it was indeed very dark outside. So I went out with all my equipment, gathered it up, took it out to my soldering station I had in the back garden, pulled out the map gas bottle ready to light it up, and I could literally sense that spirit almost laughing at me. Couldn't hear the laughter, but I could feel the reverberation of a good belly laugh, laughing at me. I said, why are you laughing at me? You'll see. So I go to light up the map gas bottle. There was no gas in it, which was astonishing because I thought it was about third full. It was enough for another casting. I was like, you knew, didn't you? And they went, yeah, that's why we told you, use your Smith little torch. You've got to get used to using it and gain confidence in it. Get over your fear of it. Tonight's the night, kid. So back I went in the dark, back into my studio. And I must admit, I was a bit nervous about doing casting at my bench because, you know, the risk of fire is problematic. I don't want to have fire in my lovely little house here that I like living in. I've been living in for 22 years. Anyway, so I said to that spirit, I'm actually very nervous. I don't want to cause a fire. You won't have a fire. You've got all the equipment. You've got, the worst comes to the worst, you've got your fire extinguisher. They said you've got to gain confidence in doing this at your bench like a real jeweler. Which is true, actually. I couldn't actually argue with that. Okay, I said, but I'm very, very nervous. And they said, don't worry, we'll be with you. We'll guide you through it. And they actually did. At one point, I knew the temperature of my Smith little torch and the rosebud. I knew it wasn't hot enough because I couldn't hear the loud hiss it normally makes. And I used to use it outside. It has a distinct sound it makes when it's the right. You've got the gas and the oxygen mixed right. It's a loud, like an angry cat hissing. And so I kind of knew consciously that it wasn't right, but I was still persevering. And that same spirit that had been with me all day said, you know that's not right. It's not hissing. You haven't got enough heat. And so you'll be standing there all night, and I even said it's going to be another fail, and I told you I didn't want to do this tonight. It could have waited another day or two. No, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it tonight, and you're going to complete it. What I thought, this energy is very assertive and actually kind of aggressive, to be honest. They were very demanding. So I turned up the oxygen, turned up the LPG, and got the mix right, could hear the loud hiss, and melted the silver and poured it. Now poured it, they said, even though even telling me when and how to pour, which I didn't need that because I know how to do that part. Anyway, they guided me every step of the way. And then when I finished it, I said, it's perfect. I'm grateful. Thank you for helping me today. But now I'm tired. I want to go to bed. By this time, it was now 10:30 at night, 10:30 p.m. at night. No, they said. What I said? We want you to clean up the beak and have it cleaned up ready for tomorrow to solder on the jump ring. Tomorrow you will solder on the jump ring, they said. But we want you to cut off the sprue and start filing and cleaning up. So after casting you have to clean up the edges. So I sat up with that till about midnight, even though I was exhausted because I was under direct orders from some kind of very big energy who happened to be a jewellery teacher. Well, they were only there that one day. I don't know what that was about. Sometimes I get help, and it's astonishing, people of Earth. But like a true alchemist, I know it is a gift from God when they want me to complete a project. That one they actually sent me out to find in the afternoon and then put me to work creating it. So that was astonishing, people of Earth. So had been crying at that time a lot about a lost love potentiate that was never going to be anything because that man was married. Some weird fucked up game that was played with me. I don't know why these things happened to me or why I even fall for it. I guess loneliness, being a bit pathetic and tragic. Anyway, the voice just said, no, you're not pathetic and you're not tragic, Tanya. Your love was real. Anyway, I appreciate you telling me that, Spirit, because I began to doubt my own mind at one point. I thought maybe I've really lost my bottle. Maybe I've got dementia. No, just cruel little games being played. Anyway, so that was the proof that they were showing me that I was perfectly fine and capable, and they had me make that lovely pendant I made from Charlie's beak. Then, it wasn't that long after, when my new little birdies arrived on the 13th of May, which is what, 3 days, 16 days later, 27th to the 30th of April. Yes, only 16 days later, I'm gifted back Charlie's beak as a reminder of true and eternal and devoted and sweet love that cannot die, even though her little body died. And then I was presented with these little birdies, which will not in any way, form or manner ever replace Charlie. Charlie was a unique soul and a unique little individual, a unique little personality, but the gods took away the man I love from me and gave me 2 sweet little birds, one of which is called Bo, which is also ironic as my dog that passed away on 1st of August 2023's name was Beauregard, or Bo for short, or Bobo. And I cried when he passed away and said, I want my dog back. Well, he's come back to me in the form of a very sweet little cockatiel named Bo. So you see, alchemy and transmutations. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away, the Lord whittles me down and breaks my heart, but then the Lord rebuilds me and recalibrates me and reminds me to be resilient and powerful and strong and to never let the bastards grind me down and set me out dancing again on Friday night, because why should I be othered and vilified because someone didn't love me? It's just ridiculous, people of Earth. But I licked my wounds for 6 weeks and took a break, and as you see in my YouTube videos, with my own little ducks in here, because did I not say I don't need anything and anyone? The gods, God in all manifestations, have my back. But as a human woman, when I say I don't need anything or anyone, we all need to have an outlet where we can enjoy the music and me have my wild dance and participate in the flow state. and the creativity that flows on from that, the knock-on effect. It's good for us. It's good for me, and I have no intention of completely walking away when I know, people don't love me. That's fine. Not everyone's going to love me. Little Bo the cockatiel's falling in love with me. He went to bite me, but not very hard. You got to laugh. Sometimes it's a bit like that. Got to grow on each other and grow up together and grow wise and grow magnificent and turn shit to spiritual gold and manifest all your dreams, and one day the right man for me will turn up and say, "You're the one, Tanya Arons. Let's date and do wonderful things together and share our lives together." Oh, I'm a romantic. I've been waiting for that magical one for 60 years now, and wow, only the gods can know who is meant to be with me, and what time frames, and what paradigm, and what dimension. I was hoping in 3D reality of planet Earth while I was still in this body, but it doesn't seem to be very likely. Oh, small as fire, love. But I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm going to continue my dancing, my creativity, and be in love with planet Earth and those who love me back, genuinely and authentically and sweetly and kindly. And life can and will be good, people of Earth. So I've been working at this for a long, long time, which is why I had a bit of an ontological shock when I realised I'd been mistaken, played for a fool again. Oh, but no hard feelings. Everyone has their own heart and mind and chooses their own loves accordingly. Blessed be. Right, where were we? The reading and rereading of mysterious books rich in symbolism might create a suitable mental atmosphere for this ability to show itself, a condition of mental exhaustion and headiness, a kind of drunkenness of the imagination. And the same mental condition might also be contributed to by the exhaustion produced by long concentration on the chemical operations themselves, performed over and over again. I know I'm rather exhausted from my efforts trying to make that cover, but it will happen at the appointed time by the grace of God. I've only got 2 things to do now. Solder on 2 little gold butterflies, because I'm going to persevere till that's done, people of Earth. And set the stone, and then I'll be able to wear it. Maybe only 1 little gold embellishment. Let's not drive myself too crazy. But it will look odd having just 1 gold embellishment. It'll be uneven. So maybe I need to gain mastery at soldering on embellishments. It's crazy making, but I can do it. Right. In this light, it is not surprising that so many alchemical writers insist that guidance from a master, a successful adept, was essential for success. Indeed, my master came to me, master as a obviously someone that knew a bit about silversmithing anyway, came to me on the 27th of April and worked me quite hard, quite frankly. It was quite a stern taskmaster. I debriefed about it with my psychiatrist. He said, "That's interesting, Tanya, because had that been a human, mortal man bossing you around like that, you would have given him short shrift very bloody quickly." "Indeed," I said. "Indeed." I would have told him to naff off. "Why didn't you, Tanya?" asked my worthy and wonderful doctor, who gets to hear these stories too and sometimes equally amazed by them. I said, "I'll tell you why, doctor. I wasn't going to argue with an invisible being, and I don't know what it is, whether it's a demon, an angel, a manifestation of my own id, or whatever it is. I was a little bit awestruck and not likely to argue. Like Moshe Avinu, Moses our father, who himself argued with God, I have been known to be defiant even against the will of God from time to time. If I don't like how things are playing out, I'll say so, which is often quite audacious of me, or as we say in Yiddish, chutzpahdik. But somehow with that being on the 27th of April, I knew not to mess with it, not to be too disobedient, but they was greatly amused when I went to disobey by using the nap gas and I'd run out. Didn't know that I'd run out, found out the hard way. Delightful. I wonder who that being was, whether they were fairy or angel. Because whoever they were benevolent. They were strict with me and very stern. And do this now and do that now. And I'll be like, no, I don't want to, I'm tired. No, I don't want to. But they kept with me until I achieved the goal. And then they disappeared to whatever dimension they came from. It's astonishing, people were. But I guess they know now that I will obey if push comes to shove, and I'm satisfied that it's a benevolent or a benign or beneficial offering of guidance. But if I think something's a bit sus and dangerous or destructive, then I will fight to the bitter end, even to my own death if necessary. Will not be a participant in anything that impedes on mine or other humans' free will, or for our safety, for our body autonomy, people of Earth. It's why the whole thing when COVID came about really sent me into absolute fury. You have no right to impose your will on another person's body autonomy. Just saying. Right. The adept's experience would enable him to guide and train the experimenter in the development and control of parachemical ability. Be lovely if they taught me how to make gold, since I live in housing commission and, poverty, but I'm not greedy. This is the thing. I think that's why they help me, because they know I'm not greedy by nature. I ask for what I need, And very often I'm gifted in unusual circumstances by people I call earth angels. And but I don't ask for more than what I need, usually. Although it'd be nice to have a mansion in Byron Bay by the sea, and a beautiful man by my side who genuinely loves me, but let's be real here, that's asking a lot, even for the psychedelic dreamer. My goodness. All my needs are met, and I'm very contented and blessed and grateful. Just wish I hadn't got myself sick. But I knew last night I was going to get sick because I was in and out of the blankets and peeing and lying. My whole body was contorting with real pain. I got a pain in my back behind my lungs again. And I was having all these like weird body contortions, and I was like, yo, girlfriend, you're getting sick. What's today? Tuesday. I danced on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's possible I've caught a lurgy from someone that was out too, but I don't think so. I think I just caught a lurgy because I've worked myself. I've worked myself so hard doing the most ridiculous little jobs, like screwing wheels on crates, storage crates, and that little magazine rack yesterday. It's all a bit mad, quite frankly. But it felt important, like I had to do it. Preparing. I'm nesting and preparing for something, I don't know what. So I have to go with it. I do this about this time of year every year, coming into winter. I do a bit of a frenzy of preparation and nesting. I can set the clock by me sometimes. Came up in my memories yesterday. I was like, yes, this is a repeat pattern, so it's obviously what I do. Winter is coming. Work yourself to death, making all these little things all tidied up, all around the house, all sorted and facilitated. I hammered some scrap leather I had on my tree stump yesterday so that I can pull it out, have a handle on it to pull it. It's a very useful thing I thought I might do, but my hands are so sore today, arthritic and sore. Anyway, before I read any further, I'll just show you the various it usually gives an explanation, but I guess it's self-explanatory. The various symbols of the 4 elements. Fire, air, water, earth, dry, hot, wet, cold. Let's look at that again closely. First matter and the elements. Western alchemy originated, so far as we know, in Egypt in the last centuries before Christ. In the East there is another old nucleus of alchemical doctrine in China connected with Taoist philosophy and magic. The highest stage of enlightenment there was designated by the symbol of the golden flower, and there seem to be parallels and even connections with Occidental alchemy. But our knowledge of Chinese alchemy is still very limited. In Egypt, part of the basis of early alchemy came from the metalworking techniques of the ancient world, which, by the way, were amazing and actually supersede what we still know today. Just saying. Craftsmen had reached a high level of competence in producing silver and copper alloys, which looked like gold. So much so that a large number of technical terms had to be invented for the numerous different varieties of gold which were available. A papyrus found at Thebes in Egypt, written in Greek circa 300 AD, contains recipes for changing the colour of a metal so as to make it resemble gold or silver, and claims that the results will successfully pass all the tests for natural gold and silver. This emphasis on changing the colour of a metal supports the theory of Segal and others mentioned earlier, at least so far as the early history of alchemy is concerned. To this basis in practical metallurgy, mystical and magical doctrines were added, often put out under the name of Hermes Trismegistus, thrice greatest Hermes. Hence, the later references to alchemy as the Hermetic art or philosophy. Some of the essential alchemical doctrines had been formulated before 400 AD. It was accepted that all things are made of a primeval substance called first matter, the substance from which the world was originally made, with the implication that an experimenter could strip a material of its ephemeral qualities such as colour, size, shape, weight, and get back to the irreducible element of first matter. He could then add to first matter the qualities needed to make it into gold. And there was the parallel implication that the alchemist could do the same thing in the inner reaches of his own being. The prevailing theory of the elements, which was worked out by Greek philosophers and reigned almost unchallenged until the 17th century, also gave the alchemists support for their belief that the base metals, lead, copper, tin, iron, could be changed into the precious metals silver and gold. The theory was that all things are made of differing mixtures of four basic elements: fire, air, earth, and water. These elements were the first stage in the growth or development of first matter, and each combined two of the four primary qualities: hot, cold, dry, wet. Fire was hot and dry, earth was dry and cold, and so on. See diagram, which I showed you previously. Now, if one of the qualities in an element alters, it changes into a different element. If water, cold and wet, is heated, it changes into air, hot and wet, giving off vapour or steam. If a burning fire, hot and dry, dies down and loses its heat, it changes into earth, cold and dry, and turning into ashes. The theory suggested that if alchemists altered the elemental structure of, say, lead, they could turn it into gold. The theory also determined the pattern of their chemical processes, which consisted mainly of heating and cooling, drying and liquefying, metals and planets. Another theory, which was the basis of much alchemical symbolism, connected the seven principal metals with the seven planets known to the ancient world. The two precious metals were assigned to the two most valuable heavenly bodies, those which gave light, the sun, gold, and the moon, silver, and the remaining metals to the other planets. See diagram. So if you look at Jupiter and, or is it Saturn, those were the two symbols that were shown to me that evening at Ecstatic Dance, which I had to go home and Google frantically, try and figure out what that entity that presented itself as Lilith was trying to say to me in alchemical symbols. It was assumed that metals developed in the earth, each under the influence of its own planet, that metals had a natural tendency to grow or develop into the noblest and most perfect of their kind, gold, but that owing to the accidents of nature the metals reach this desirable end all too seldom. The alchemist, theoretically, could take the lowest of metals, lead, and develop or ripen it through the stages of the planetary chain until it became gold. A medieval work called The Investigation of Perfection says of alchemy in a 17th century translation that the science treats of the imperfect bodies of minerals and teacheth how to perfect them. And again there was a parallel with the successive stages and the perfecting of the imperfect alchemist himself. There you go. I'll just show you this picture before we continue. In the alembic are the three stages of the work shown by the black, white and red birds. The body, soul and spirit in man, mercury, sulphur and salt in chemistry, the elements which have to be united to produce the philosopher's stone. The sex, the sex of metals. To the alchemists, metals and minerals were alive. They grew in the belly of the earth and were endowed with sex. A German handbook on metals printed in 1505 says, "It is to be noted that for the growth or generation of a metal ore, there must be a begetter, and some subject capable of receiving the generative action, and that in the union of mercury and sulphur in the ore, the sulphur behaves like the male seed, and the mercury like the female seed in the conception and birth of a child." Don't try that at home either, people there. Underlying these various theories from very early times was the belief in the unity of the universe, that all the varied phenomena of the world are parts of one harmonious whole, and that just as a man's body contains his soul or spirit, so the body or matter of the world is permeated by a universal spirit. Alchemists came to believe that the universal spirit could be compressed or concentrated into the marvellous philosopher's stone, and that in this form it would ripen or perfect the other metals and turn them to gold. The alchemy of the mind. Actually, no, before we read that, I'll just read this little story within a story within a story that they throw in just out of interest, people there. The stone in California. In 1910, Mr. and Mrs. Richard Ingerles, both occultists and authors, began a study of alchemy in their Los Angeles home, hoping to find the philosopher's stone and elixir. Years passed while they worked to isolate the spirits or virtues of metals. Then in 1917, Mrs. Ingerles claimed success. She had created the white stone of alchemy. They tried it on their cat, then on themselves with what they called energizing effects. More years passed. Then these modern alchemists proclaimed their achievement of the red stone. A writer for the Occult Review described it as a cinnamon-coloured powder with an intensely bitter taste. Mrs. Ingerles claimed to have performed some astounding cures with the stones, including the restoration to health of a woman who had been dead for half an hour. While never claiming the power of rejuvenation for their elixir, the two alchemists did imply that the stones could arrest the physical deterioration of old age. In 1928, when Mrs. Ingerles was 73, she was apparently still slim, graceful, and lively. You go, girlfriend. The alchemy of the mind. In this century, psychologists, notably C.G. Jung, have begun to pay serious attention to the symbolism of alchemy. Jung's interpretations are often not much easier to understand than the obscure texts of the old alchemists themselves, but his investigations focused attention on esoteric alchemy, on the symbolism as opposed to the chemistry, on the alchemist's attempt to perfect himself as contrasted with his attempt to make gold. I really could do with another cup of tea. Oh, people of Earth. Though it must be remembered that the two sides of alchemy are like two faces of one coin and cannot properly be separated. The search for the stone was both a search for gold and a search for spiritual perfection. Jung's approach to alchemy was based on his discovery of alchemical symbolism in the dreams of some of his patients who themselves knew nothing of alchemy at all. This suggested that the symbols, the snakes, dragons, lions and wolves, the springs and fountains, the trees, castles and the rest, were not chosen deliberately by mystery-mongering authors out to impress the gullible or cheat the greedy, but that they correspond to ageless realities of the human mind. Jung believed that the great work of alchemy was very close to what he called individuation, the shaping of an integrated personality. The symbols are a secret language of the mind, which stand for psychological processes and stages in the work. The alchemist, he explains, in Psychology and Alchemy, was really exploring not the nature of matter, but his own unconscious mind. The real nature of matter was unknown to the alchemist, who knew it only in hints. Inasmuch as he tried to explore it, he projected the unconscious into the darkness of matter in order to illuminate it. In order to explain the mystery of matter, he projected yet another mystery, namely his own psychic background, into what was to be explained. Obscurum per obscurius, ignotum per ignotius. This procedure was not, of course, intentional. It was an involuntary occurrence, which I've seen a few times as I enumerated earlier in my own recent silversmithing, jewellery making, flow states, experiences. Sometimes it happens in the dance too, which scares people, but I'm not responsible for their ignorance or fear of the other, or a wild woman expressing her soul expression in her highest form, that of freedom and joy. So feck anyone who can't take a joke. Seriously, feck 'em. Politely, go feck themselves. Mama T dances because she has 2 arms and 2 legs, and a head and a mind and a spirit that demands to express itself in dance, even though some very vicious men at the Koala Tavern said I'm an ugly dancer and I have a horrible dance. That's their perception. It's got nothing to do with me. Just so. Get very many vicious, sadistic, sadomasochistic people out in the scene, BDSM types that think it's fun to try and undermine a woman like me. Try to drive me out of what? Envy or bathos or pathos or dishonour. Coercive control? Yes, we've seen it all, babies. We've seen it all. We've outlived it all. So no one dares fuck with the Tanya. Just say. The Latin words in this quotation are an alchemical maxim, meaning that the obscure is to be explained by the more obscure, the unknown by the more unknown. Another favourite maxim of the alchemists was solve et coagula, dissolve and combine. Alchemia Vera, the True Alchemy, a German work of 1604, says that the whole secret of the art is hidden in these 3 words: solve et coagula, coagulate, dissolve and combine. Interesting, interesting. Thank you, spirits, by the way. I've been using that word quite a lot in trance drumming sessions. Coagulate. Didn't know what they mean, but now we know. Sometimes you have to break things apart, put them back together in another form to create the great work. The transmutation, the rebuilding of the Tanya. But I'm old and I'm tired and I seek peace and comfort and ease for my older age, and true and enduring authentic love, which I wanted all my life, not just in recent years, by the way. So I'm allowed to be disappointed when things didn't pan out how I hoped. Right, coagulate. A German work in 1604 named The True Alchemy, or Alchemia Vera, says the whole secret of the art is hidden in these 3 words. To dissolve refers to the old belief that the characteristics of a substance could be stripped away from it to reduce it to first matter. To combine meant to build up a new substance by adding desirable characteristics to the first matter. Psychologically, to dissolve means to break down and destroy surface mental characteristics and attitudes which surround and obscure a man, or in my case a woman's, basic self. To combine is to build up a new integrated personality. This is the thing that my enemies fear. Latanya, fully fucking integrated. You see glimpses of it at times. Don't show it too often, my full power. But every now and then, when I feel like I'm integrated, what does Mama 2 do? Puts on her dancing boots and struts her stuff, babies. Oh, you have to laugh. It's all good fun. Harmless fun, actually. No harm, no foul. Love is the law, love unto will. Right. I mean, you have to giggle sometimes. I'm cute and I'm adorable when I'm not being a warrior goddess going to war on some feckless, vicious miscreant. Death and resurrection. The details of how chemical processes are extremely complicated and vary from one alchemical textbook to another. But, broadly speaking, the first steps in the great work were concerned with the dissolution, the reduction of the material in the alchemist's vessel to first matter. The parallel in the mind is the destruction of attitudes, ideas, complexes, of the whole outer shell of the personality. In alchemy, this process ended with what was called nigredo, the black stage, when the material in the vessel had been broken down to first matter and was said to be dead and putrefying, when the alchemist himself had subjected his own personality to the fiery furnace of self-questioning and self-doubt. Did that for 6 weeks, babies. Now the bitch is back. Just saying, even though I whittled myself down to some kind of a cold, it's all part of the alchemical transformation. Right. Had subjected his own personality to the fiery furnace of self-questioning and self-doubt. Had gone down into his own inner abyss. Had apparently destroyed himself and lay dead, rotting in the slime, which was all that was left of his ideals, his hopes and ambitions, his defences against the outer world. The Negredo corresponds to the mock death found in many rituals of initiation. Among some primitive tribes, a magician's initiation involves a sleep of death from which he is reborn. Did that in my 30s, people, the 30s and 40s actually. So a lot of sleeping and trying not to die. So I'll be damned, literally damned, if anyone should come between me and my right to live fully, vibrantly and joyously now at this late stage of my life. I've earned my right and privilege to be happy and carefree and creative and prosperous in all my undertakings, perhaps even one day successful. I've earned it. I've done the years and years and years of breaking down and rebuilding and breaking down and rebuilding. I don't need external monsters to project their shit at me. Not my first rodeo. In the Golden Ass of Apuleius, written in the 2nd century AD, the hero describes his initiation into the mysteries of the goddess Isis and says that he approached the very gates of death but was allowed to return. I'm just smiling because if you've been on this channel or you've known me long enough, you'll know we're up to 16 near deaths now. It's a lot, people. I'm tired of that evil shit too. It's a lot. Right. The alchemists often drew a parallel between the Negredo and the crucifixion, the death from which Christ rose to new life. Well, I wouldn't compare my experiences to that because I'm definitely not a Christian, but I can see that the parallels would be recognisable in some aspects. The remaining processes of the work constituted the combination, or putting together again after the dissolution had been completed. After the Negredo came the rebirth, which is described in an alchemical version of the Mass written by Nicholas Melchior, astrologer to the King of Hungary in the 16th century. The Ethiopian or black man is the alchemist's material, black in the death of the Negredo. Then will appear in the bottom of the vessel the mighty Ethiopian, burned, calcined, bleached, altogether dead and lifeless. He asks to be buried, to be sprinkled with his own moisture, and slowly calcined till he shall arise, and glowing forth from the fierce fire. Behold a wondrous restoration or renewal of the Ethiopian. This is the bath of rebirth, in which a new inspiration, a new life, revives the alchemist after the death of the Negredo. From here on, often through a long succession of complicated processes, the alchemist built up the stone or the perfected personality, which, to quote Nicholas Melchior, is the treasure of treasures, the supreme philosophical potion, the divine secret of the ancients. Blessed is he that finds such a thing. As if you could just stumble across it and find it somewhere, people of earth. Something to think about. We know now that the alchemist's dream of turning base metals to gold is theoretically possible, though the cost of doing so would make the operation distinctly uneconomic. Modern nuclear physics has, in a sense, reached the alchemical goal but has totally neglected its non-material aim of perfecting the soul. When we consider its foul possibilities, we may feel that perhaps Thomas Norton of Bristol was not so naive after all. This art must ever secret be, if one evil man had thereof all his will, all Christian peace he might easily spill. See also Elixir of Life, Mercury, Philosopher's Stone, written by Hans Biedermann. Further reading. Excellent introductory books are C. A. Berland, The Arts of the Alchemists, published by Macmillan in 1968. E. J. Homeyard, Alchemy, published by Penguin in 1968. And J. Reid, Prelude to Chemistry, An Outline of Alchemy, MIT Press. For C. G. Jung's theories, see his Psychology and Alchemy, Princeton University Press, 1967, and Mysterium Conjunctionis, Princeton, spelt with an I, Conjunctionis, but I think it means conjunctionis, Princeton University Press, 1963. For the experiences of a modern alchemist, see A. Cochrane, Alchemy Rediscovered and Restored, Ryder, 1940. See also Mircea Eliade, The Forge and the Crucible, published by Allinson, 1956. And thus we conclude tonight's readings of 27th of May 2025, and I bid you good night. Time here is 11 p.m. in Brisbane, Australia. I need a cup of tea before I go to bed, which means I'll need to pee, but I'm very thirsty after that long reading, so blessed be to my beloved, true, loyal, adoring friends, remnant family, community and or tribe. Sleep well if you tucking in for the night, people of earth, And for those of you on the other side of the planet, have a beautiful day wherever you find yourselves on planet Earth, feet touching sacred earth, sacred space, sacred ground. Makom, which is one of the names of God, can be found anywhere. So, miracles, surprises, alchemical transmutations of heart, mind, body, spirit and soul can occur anywhere and at any time, but especially if you put in at least some of the great work. Not that I'm an alchemist, you understand. I'm just a short, fat hobbit woman trying to get herself through life, just like every other mortal on this planet, living our best lives joyfully and with great passion and wild abandon at times and joy and delight, sending you love across vortices of time and space. Good night from Titania's realm. Blessed be.